Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secret, Chapter 10, Roger Bludger. Since the disastrous episode of the Pixies, Professor Lockhart had not brought live creature. Yeah. Some more dramatic bits. He usually picked Harry to help him with these reconstruction. So far, Harry had been forced to play simpleton civilian villager whom Lockhart had cursed off a babbling curse, a yeti with a whole head cold and a vampire who had been unable to eat anything except lettuce since Lockhart had dealt with him. Harry was hauled to the front of the class during the very next defense against Doc Artletson, this time acting a werewolf. If he hadn't had been a very good reason for keeping Lockhart in a good mood, he would have refused to do it. Nice loud howl, Harry, exactly. And then if you'll believe it, I pounced like this, slammed into the floor. Thus, with one hand, I managed to hold him down. With my others, I put my wand to his throat. I screwed up my remaining strength and performed the immensely complex homomorphous charm. He let out a tremendous moan. Go on, Harry, and higher than that. Good, and the var vanished, the fangs shrank, and he turned back into a man. Simple yet effective, and another village will remember me forever as the hero who delivered them from the monthly terror of werewolf attack. The bell rang, and Lockhart got to his feet. Homework! Compose a poem about my defeat of the Wagga Wagga werewolf. Sign copies of Magical Me to the author of the best one. The class began to leave. Harry returned to the back of the room where Ron and Hermione were away. Ready? Harry murmured. Well, till everyone's gone, said Hermione nervously. All right. She approached Lockhart's desk, a piece of paper clutched tightly in her hand. Harry and Ron were right behind her. Professor Lockhart? Hermione stammered. I wanted to get this book out of the library just for background reading. She held out a piece of paper, her hand shaking slightly. But the thing is, it's in the restricted section of the library, so I need a teacher to sign it. I'm sure it will help me understand what you say in Gadding with Golds about slow-acting venoms. Gadding with Golds, said Lockhart, taking a note from Hermione, smiling widely. Possibly my favorite book. You enjoy it? Oh, yes, said Hermione eagerly. So clever the way you trapped that last one with the tea strainer. Well, I'm sure no one will mind me giving the best student of the year a little extra help, said Lockhart warmly, and he pulled out an enormous peacock quill. Yes, nice, isn't it? He said, misreading the revolt look on Ron's face. I usually save it for book signing. He scrawled an enormous loopy signature on the note and handed it back to Hermione. So, Harry, said Lockhart, while Hermione folded the note with a fumbling finger and slipped into a bag. Tomorrow the first Quidditch match of the season, I believe. Gryffindor against Slytherin, is it not? I hear you're a useful player, but I was a seeker too. I was asked to try for a national squad, but preferred to dedicate my life to attractive dark force. Still, if ever you feel the need for a little private training, don't hesitate to ask. Always happy to pass on my expert tip to play to less able player. Harry made an insistent noise in his throat and then hurried off after Ron and Hermione. I don't believe it, he said as three of them examined the signature on the note. He didn't even look at the book we wanted. That's because he's a brainless git, said Ron. But who cares? We've got what we needed. He is not a brainless git, said Hermione shrilly, as they ran toward the library. Just because he said you were the best student in the year, they dropped their voices as they entered the muffled stillness of the library. Madame Pins, the librarian, was a thin, irritable woman. Oh my God. Who looked like an underfed vulture. Most pushing, she repeated suspiciously, trying to take note from Hermione. But Hermione wouldn't let go. I was wondering if I could keep it, she said breathlessly. Oh, come on, said Ron, wrenching it from her grasp and thrusting it to Madame Pins. We'll get you another autograph. Lockhart sign anything if it stands still long enough. Madame Pince held a note up into the light, as though determined to detect a forgery, but it passed the test. He stalked away between the lofty shelves and returned several minutes later, carrying a large and moldy-looking book. Hermione put it carefully into her bag and they left, trying not to walk too quickly or look too guilty. 5 minutes later, they were buried to Moaning Myrtle out-of-order bathroom. Once again, Hermione had overridden Ron's objective by pointing out that it was the last place anyone in their right mind would go, so they granted some privacy. Moaning Myrtle was crying noisily in her cubicle, but they were ignoring her, and them. Hermione ignoring her and she them. So if you don't understand this part, then the Golden Trial, that's Harry and Ron and Hermione, they ignored Moaning Myrtle, and Moaning Myrtle ignored them. Yeah. Hermione opened most portion carefully, and the three of them bent over the damp spotted page. It was clear from a glance what belonged to a restricted section. Some of the portion, in fact, almost too gruesome to think about. Three were some very unpleasant illustration, which included a man who seemed to have been turned inside out, and a witch sprouting several extra pair of arms out of her head. "Here's it," said Hermione excitedly as she found the page. Restrict. Headed the Polyjuice potion. It was decorated with drawings of people halfway through transforming into other people. Harry sincerely hoped the artist had imagined the look of intense pain on their faces. This is the most complicated potion I've ever seen, said Hermione. They scanned the recipe. Law, wing, flies, leech, fluxweed, and not grass, she murmured, running her finger down the list of ingredients. Well, they're easily enough. They're in the student store cupboard. We can help them out ourselves. Ooh, look, powder horn of Birkin. I don't know where we're going to get that. Shredded skin and boomslang. That'll be tricky too. And of course a bit of whoever we want to change into. Excuse me, said Ron sharply. What do you mean a bit of whoever we're changing to? I'm drinking nothing with gray toenails in it. Hermione continued as she hadn't heard him. We won't have to worry about that yet though, because we add those bit last. Wait a minute. I'm having like a sore throat, not a sore throat exactly. Um, a runny nose. So yeah. Do you realize how we're gonna have to steal Hermione? Shredded skin from Bloomsday. That's definitely not in the student cupboard. What are we going to do? Break into this Snape private store? I don't know if this is a good idea. Hermione shut the book with a snap. Well, you two are going to check it out. Fine, she said. There were a bright pink patch on her cheek and eyes. And her eyes are brighter than usual. I don't want to break the rules, you know. I think threatening Muggleborn is far worse than brewing up a difficult potion. But if you don't want to find out if it's Malfoy, I'll go straight to Madame Pince now and hand the book back in. I never thought I'd see the day when you're persuading us to break rules, said Ron. All right, we'll do it, but not toenails, okay? How long will it take it to make? Anyway, said Harry, as Hermione, looking happier, opened the book again. Well, as a fluxweed has got to be picked at the full moon, and the lace wing had got to be stewed for 21 days. I'd say we're ready in about a month, if we can get all the ingredients. A month? Said Ron. Malfoy could have attacked half the Muggleborn in the school by then. But Hermione's eyes narrowed dangerously again, and he added swiftly, but it's the best plan we've got, so full steam ahead, I say. However, while Hermione was checking that the coast was clear for them to leave the bathroom, Ron murmured to Harry, "It will be a lot less hassle if you can just knock Malfoy off his broom tomorrow." Harry woke early on Saturday morning and lay a while thinking about the coming Quidditch match. He was nervous, mainly at that thought of what it would say if Gryffindor lost, but also the idea of facing a team mounted on the fastest racing broom gold could buy. He had never wanted to beat Slytherin so badly. After half an hour of lying there with his inside churning, he got up, dressed, and went down to breakfast early, where he found the rest of the Gryffindor team had a long, empty table, all looking uptight and not speaking much. As 7 o'clock approached, the whole school started to make its way down to the Quidditch stadium. It was muggy, sort of day, with a hint of thunder in the air. Ron and Hermione came hurrying over to wish Harry good luck as he entered the changing room. The team put on the scarlet Gryffindor robe, then sat down to listen to Wood's usual pre-match pep talk. "Slytherin have better broom than us," he began. "No point denying it, but we've got better people in our broom. We've trained harder than they have. They've been flying in all. We've been flying in all weather." "Too true," muttered George Weasley. "I've been properly dried since August. And we're going to make them rue the day they let that little bit of slime, Malfoy, buys way into their team." Chest heaving with emotion, Wood turned to Harry. Wood turned to Harry. "It'll be down to you, Harry, to show them that Seeker has to have something more than a rich father. Get that snitch before Malfoy or die trying, Harry, because we've got to win today. We've got to." "So no pressure, Harry," said Fred, winking at him. As they walked out onto the pitch, a roar of noise greeted them, mainly cheers, because Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff were anxious to see Slytherin beaten, but Slytherin and the Crown made their boos and hisses heard too. Madam Hooch, the Quidditch teacher, asked Flint and Wood to shake hands, which they did, giving each other threatening stares and gripping rather harder than was necessary. "On my whistle," said Madam Hooch. "3, 2, 1, with a roar of crown to speed them upward. The 14 blade rose toward the Latin sky. Harry flew higher than any of them, squinting around for the snitch. "All right there, Cigarhead," yelled Malfoy, shooting underneath him as though to show off the speed of his broom. Harry had no time to reply. At the very moment, a heavy black bludger came pelting toward him. He avoided so narrowly that he felt it ruffle his hair as it passed. "Close one, Harry," said George, sticking him past with his club in his hand, ready to knock the bludger back toward a Slytherin. Harry saw George give a bludger a powerful whack in the direction of Aaron Percy, but the bludger changed direction in mid-air and shot straight for Harry again. Harry dropped quickly to avoid it, and George managed to hit it hard toward Malfoy. Once again, the bludger swerved like a boomerang and shot at Harry's head. Harry put a burst of speed and zoomed toward the other end of pitch. He could hear the Bulger whistling all behind him. What was going on? Bulger never concentrated on one player like this. It was their job to try and unseat as many people as possible. Fred and Weasley was waiting for Bulger at the other end. Harry ducked as Fred swung the Bulger with all his might. The Bulger knocked off, of course. "That's done it!" Fred yelled happily, but he was wrong, as though it was a magnetically attacked toward Harry. The Bulger repelled after him once more, and Harry was forced to fly off at full speed. It had started to rain. Harry felt heavy drop falls on his face, splattering on his glasses. He didn't have a clue what was going on the rest of the game until he heard Lee Jordan, who was commenting, say, "Slytherin lead, 60.0. The Slytherin Super Broom were clearly doing their job, and meanwhile the mad Bulger was doing it all could knock Harry out of air. Fred and George were now flying so close to him on the either side that Harry could see nothing at all except their flaying arms and no chance to look for a snitch, let alone catch it. Someone tampered with his bulger, Red grunted, swinging his bat with all his might as it launched a new attack on Harry. We need time out, said George, trying to signal to Wood and stop the bulgers, breaking Harry's nose at the same time. Wood had obviously get the message. Madam Hooch's whistle rang out, and Harry, Fred, and George dived for the ground, still trying to avoid the mad bulger. What's going on? Said Wood as the Gryffindor team huddled together, while Slytherin and the Crown cheer. We're being flattened. Fred, George, where were you when the bulger stopped Angela scoring? We were 20 feet above her, stopping near the other bulger, muttering, Harry Oliver, said George angrily. Someone fix it. It won't leave Harry alone. It hasn't gone for anyone else all game. The Slytherin must have done something to it. But the bulger have been locking Madam Hooch over office since their last practice, and there was nothing wrong with them, said Wood anxiously. Madam Hooch was walking toward them over her shoulder. Harry could see the Slytherin team cheering and pointing in his direction. Listen, Sarah, as she came nearer and nearer, with you two flying around me all the time, the only way I'm going to catch the snitch is if it flies up my sleeve. Go back to the rest of the team and let me deal with a rough one. Don't be thick, said Fred. It'll take your head off. Wood was looking from Harry to the Weasley. Oliver, this isn't mad, said Alice Spinnet angrily. You can't let Harry deal with that thing. Deal with Harry. You can't let Harry deal with that thing on his own. Let's ask for an inquiry. If we stop now, we'll have to forfeit the match, said Harry. And we're not losing to Slytherin just because of a mad bulger. Come on, Oliver, tell them to leave me alone. This is all your fault, George said angrily to Wood. Get the snitch or die trying. What a stupid thing to tell them. Madam Hooch had joined them. Ready to resume play? She asked Wood. Wood looked at the determined look on Harry's faces. All right, he said. Fred and George, you heard Harry. Leave him alone and let him deal with the bulger on his own. The rain was falling more heavily now. On Madam Hooch whistled, Harry kicked hard into the air and heard the telltale whoosh of bulger behind him. Higher and higher Harry climbed. He looped and swooped, spiraled, zigzagged, and rolled, slightly dizzy. He nevertheless kept his eyes wide open. Rain was speckling his glass and ran up his nostril as he hung upside down, avoiding another fierce dive from the bulger. He could hear laughter from the crowd. He knew he must look very stupid, but the rough bulger was heavy and couldn't change direction as quickly as he could. He began to kind of roller coaster ride around the edge of the stadium, squinching through the silver sheets of the range of Gryffindor goalpost, where Aaron Pussy was trying to get past Wood. A whistling in his ear told him that Bulger just missed him again. He turned right over and sped in the opposite direction. Training for ballet, Porter? Said Malfoy, as Harry was forced to do a stupid kind of twirl in mid-air to dodge the Bulger. Off Harry fled, the Bulger training a few feet behind him, and then glaring back at Fleur in hatred. He saw it, the golden snitch. It was hovering inch from above Malfoy's left ear, and Malfoy, busy laughing at Harry, hadn't seen it. For an astonishing moment, Harry hung in mid-air, not daring to sped toward Malfoy in case he looked up and saw the snitch. Wham! He'd stayed still a second too long. The bulge had hit him at last, smashed to his elbow, and Harry felt his arm break. Dimly, dazed by searing pain in his arm, he slid sideways on the rain-drenched broom, and one knee still croaked over it. Straight, an arm dangling and useless at his side, the bulger came pelting back for a second attack, this time aiming at his face. Harry swerved out of his way. The one firmly locked and the numb brain get to Malfoy. Through a haze of rain and pain, he dived for a shimmering, sneering face below him, saw its eyes widen with fears. Malfoy thought Harry was attacking him. What the? He gasped, carrying out Harry away. Harry took his remaining hand off his broom and made a wild snatch. He felt his finger close on the cold snitch, but now was not only gripping the broom with his leg, and there was a yell from the crowd below as he headed straight for the ground, trying hard not to pass out. With a splattering thud, he hit the mud and rolled up his broom, his armor hanging at a very strange angle. Riddled with pain, he heard as though from a distance a good deal of whistling and shouting. He focused on the snitch clutch in his good hand. "Aha!" he said valiantly. "We've won! We've won!" And he fainted. He came round, rain And he came around, rain falling on his face, still lying on the pitch, with someone leaning over him. He saw a glitter of teeth. "Oh no, not you," he moaned. "Doesn't know what he's saying," said Lockhart loudly, to the anxious crowd of Gryffindor pressing around them. "Not to worry, Harry. I'm about to fix your arm." "No," said Harry. "I'll keep it like this, thanks." He tried to sit up, but the pain was terrible. He heard a familiar clicking noise nearby. "I don't want a photo of this, Colin," he said loudly. "Lie back, Harry," said Lockhart soothingly. "It's simple charm I've used countless times. Why can't I just go to the hospital wing?" Harry through the clenched teeth. "He should really, Professor," said a muddy Wood, who couldn't help grinning even though his secret was injured. "Great capture, Harry. Really spectacular. Your best yet, I'd say." Through the thicket of leg around him, Harry spotted Fred and George Weasley wrestling a rough bludgeon into a box. It was still putting up a terrific fight. "Stand back," said Lockhart, who was rolling up his jade green sleeve. "No, don't," said Harry weakly, but Lockhart was twirling his wand, and a second later it had directed straight at Harry's arms. A strange and unpleasant sensation started Harry's shoulder and spread all the way down to his fingertip. It felt as though his arm was being deflated, but he didn't dare look at what was happening. He had shut his eyes, his face turned away from his arm, but his worst fear would realize as people above him guessed and Colin Creevy began clicking away madly. His arm didn't hurt any more, but nor did it feel remotely like an arm. "Ah!" said Lockhart. "Yes, well, that can sometime happen, but the point is, the bones are no longer broken. That's the thing to bear in mind. So, Harry, just toddle up to the hospital wing. Mr. Weasley, Miss Granger, would you escort him? And Madame Pomfrey will be able to, tie you up a bit." As Harry got to his feet, he felt strangely lopsided. Taking a deep breath, he looked out on his right side, when he saw nearly made him pass out again, poking at the end of his rope and what looked like a thick, fresh-colored rubber glove. He tried to move his finger. Nothing happened. Lockhart didn't mend Harry's bones. He had removed them. Madame Pomfrey wasn't pleased at all. "You should have come straight to me," she bragged, holding up the sad remainder of what half an hour before had been a working arm. "I can mend bones in a second, but growing them back—" "You will be able, won't you?" said Harry desperately. "It will be able to, certainly, but it will be painful," said Madame Pomfrey grimly, throwing Harry a pair of pajamas. "You'll have to stay the night." Hermione waited outside the curtain drawn around Harry's bed, while Ron held out with his pajamas. It took a while to stuff the rubbery, boneless arm into his sleeve. "How can you stick up a Lockhart now, Hermione? Huh?" Ron called through the curtain as he pulled Harry Lim's finger through a cuff. If Harry had wanted deboning, he would have asked. "Anyone can make a mistake," said Hermione. "And it doesn't hurt any more, does it, Harry?" "No," said Harry, "but it doesn't do anything else either." As he swung himself onto the bed, his arm flapped pointlessly. Hermione and Madame Pomfrey came around the curtain. Madame Pomfrey was holding a large bottle of something labeled Skelegro. "You're in a rough night," she said, pouring out a steaming beakerful and handing it to Harry. "Regrowing bone is a nasty business. So was taking the Skelegro. It burned Harry's mouth and throat as it went down, making him cough and splutter. It's still tutting about dangerous sport. An inept teacher." Madame Pomfrey retreated, leaving Ron and Hermione to help Harry gulp down some water. "We won, though," said Ron, a grin breaking across his face. Malfoy's face. He looked ready to kill. "I want to know how he fixed that bulger," said Hermione darkly. "We can add that to the list of questions we'll ask him when we've taken the polyjuice potion," said Harry, sinking back onto his pillow. "I hope it tastes better than this stuff." "If it's got a bit of Slytherin in it, you've got to be joking," said Ron. The door of the hospital wing burst open at that moment, filthy and soaking wet. The rest of the Gryffindor team had arrived to see Harry. "Unbelievable flying, Harry," said George. "I've just seen Marcus Flint yelling at Malfoy something about having the snitch on top of his head and not noticing it. Malfoy didn't seem to be too happy." Dad bought cakes, sweet and bottled pumpkin juice. They gathered around Harry Bed and were just getting started what promised to be a good party when Madame Pomfrey came storming over, shouting, "This boy need rest. He got 33 bones to regrow. Out, out!" And Harry, well, quite, wait a minute, well, quite suddenly in the pitch blackness for a small yelp. Pitch blackness and gave a small yellow pain. His arm now felt full of large splinter. For a second he thought it was what that witch had woken him up. Then, with a thrill of horror, he realized that someone was sponging his forehead in the dark. "Get off!" he said loudly, and then, "Dobby!" The house elf goggling tennis ball eyes were peering at Harry through the darkness. A single tear was running down his long, pointed nose. "Harry Potter came back to school," he whispered miserably. Dobby warned and warned Harry Potter. Sir, why didn't you hate Dobby? Why didn't Harry Potter go back home when he missed the train?" Um, he, Harry heaved himself up on his pillow and pushed Dobby's sponge away. "What are you doing here?" he said. "And how did you know I missed the train?" Dobby's lips trembled, and Harry was seized by a sudden suspicion. "It was you," he said slowly. "You stopped the barrier, letting us through." "Indeed, yes, sir," said Dobby, nodding his head vigorously. Ear flapping, Dobby hid and watched for Harry Potter and sealed the crate away. And Dobby had to iron his hand afterward. He showed Harry one long bandaged finger. But Dobby didn't care, sir, for he thought Harry Potter was safe, and never did Dobby dream that Harry Potter would get to school another way. He was rocking backward and forward, shaking his ugly head. Dobby was so shocked that when he heard Harry Potter was back at Hogwarts, he let his master dinner burn. Such a flogging Dobby had never had, sir. Harry slumped back on his pillow. "You nearly got Ron and me expelled," he said fiercely. You better clear off before my bone come back, Dobby, or I might strangle you." Dobby smiled weakly. "Dobby is used to death threats, sir. Dobby get them 5 times a day at home." He blew his nose on the corner filthy pillowcase he wore, looking so pathetic that Harry felt his anger ebb away in spite of himself. "Why you wear that thing, Dobby?" he asked curiously. "This, sir," said Dobby, plucking his pillowcase. "'Tis a mark of the house elf enslavement, sir. Dobby can only be freed if his master prevent him with clothes, sir. The family is careful not to pass Dobby even a sock, sir, and for then he would be free to leave their house forever." Dobby mopped his bulging eyes and said suddenly, "Harry Potter must go home." Dobby thought his bulger would be enough to make "Your Bulger?" said Harry, anger rising once more. "What do you mean, your Bulger? You make that Bulger try and kill me." "Not kill you, sir, never kill you," said Dobby, shocked. "Dobby want to save Harry Potter alive. Better sent home grievously injured and then remain here, sir. Dobby only wanted Harry Potter hurt enough to be sent home." "Oh, is that all?" said Harry angrily. "I don't suppose you're going to tell me why you wanted me sent home in pieces." "Ah, if Harry Potter only knew!" Dobby groaned, more tears dripping onto his rag pillowcase. "If he knew what he mean to us, to the lowly, the enslavements, as dread from magical world. Dobby remember how it was when he who must not be named was the height of his power, sir. We house elves were treated like vermin, sir. Of course, Dobby's still treated like that, sir," he admitted, trying his face on his pillowcases. "But mostly, sir, life has improvement for some kind, just since you triumph over he who must not be named." Um, wait a minute. But mostly, sir, life is okay. Shone like beacon of hope for those of us who thought the dark day would never end, sir. And now at Hogwarts, terrible things are to happen, or perhaps happening already. And Dobby cannot let Harry Potter stay here for now. That history has repeated itself now that the Chamber of Secrets is open once more. Toby froze, horror-struck, then grabbed Harry a water jug from his bedside table and cracked it over his own head, toppling out of sight. A second later, he crawled back onto his bed, cross-eyed, muttering, "Bad Toby, very bad Toby." "So there's a Chamber of Secret," Harry whispered. "And did you say it's been opened before? Tell me, Dobby." He seized the elf's bony wrist as Dobby's hand inched toward the water jug. "But I'm not Muggle-born. How can I be in danger from the chamber?" Ask no more, ask no more, poor Dobby," stammered the elf, his eyes huge in the dark. "Dark deeds are planned in these places, but Harry Potter must not be here when they happen. Go home, Harry Potter, go home. Harry Potter must not meddle in this, sir. 'Tis too dangerous." "Who is it, Dobby?" Harry asked, keeping a firm hold on Dobby, wrist to stop him hitting himself with a water jug again. "Who's opened it? Opened it last time?" "Dobby can't, sir. Dobby can't. Dobby mustn't tell," squealed the elf. "Go home, Harry Potter. Go home." "I'm not going anywhere," said Harry fiercely. "One of my best friend is Muggle-born. She'll be the first in line if the chamber really has been opened." "Harry Potter risked his own life for his friend," moaned Dobby, in a kind of miserable eccentricity. "So noble, so valiant, but he must save himself. He must. Harry Potter must not." Dobby suddenly froze, his bad eyes quivering. Harry heard it, too. There were footsteps coming down the passageway. "Dobby must go," breathed the elf, terrified. There was a loud crack, and Harry's fist was suddenly clenched on thin air. He slumped back into the bed. His eyes were on the dark door on the hospital wing as footsteps drew near. Next moment, Dumbledore was backing up in the dormitory, wearing a long woolly dressing gown and nightcap. He was carrying one end of what looked like a statue. Professor McGonagall appeared a second later, carrying its feet. Together, they heaved up into a bed. "Get Madame Pomfrey," whispered Dumbledore, and Professor McGonagall hurried past the end of Harry's bed, out of sight. Harry lay quite still, pretending to be asleep. He heard urgent voice, and then Professor McGonagall swept back into the view, closely followed by Madame Pomfrey, was pulling a cardigan and on over her nightdress. He heard a sharp intake for breath. "What happened?" Madame Pomfrey whispered to Dumbledore, bending over the statue on the bed. "Another attack," said Dumbledore. Miniver found him on the stair." "There was a bunch of grape next to him," said Professor McGonagall. "We think he was trying to sneak up here to visit Potter." Harry's stomach gave a horrible lurch. Slowly and carefully, he raised himself a few inches so he could take a statue on the bed. Look at the statue on the bed. A waving moonlight lay across his staring face. It was Colin Creevey. His eyes were wide, and his hand was stuck up in front of him, holding his camera. "Petrified," whispered Madame Pomfrey. "Yes," said Professor McGonagall. But I shuddered to think, if Albus had been on the way downstairs for hot chocolate, who knows what may have happened. The three of them started down at Colin, then Dumbledore leaned forward and prized the camera out of Colin's rigid grip. "You don't think he managed to get a picture of his attacker?" said Professor McGonagall eagerly. Dumbledore didn't answer. He prized open the back of the camera. "Good gracious!" said Madame Pomfrey. A jet of steam had hissed out of the camera. Harry, 3 bed away, caught the acrid smell of burnt plastic. "Melted," said Madame Pomfrey, wonderingly. "All melted. What does this mean, Albus?" Professor McGonagall asked urgently. "It means," said Dumbledore, "that the Chamber of Secret is indeed open again." Madame Pomfrey clapped her hand to her mouth. Professor McGonagall stared at Dumbledore. "But Albus, surely who?" "The question is not who," said Dumbledore, his eyes on Colin. "The question is, how?" And from what Harry could see of Professor McGonagall's shadowy face, she didn't understand this any better than he did.